what I would say is, if you're going to be making models, the next thing to really think about is the lighting. Now, what you've got here is you've got the flash sitting on the camera. One of the things we've talked about before is the fact that, unfortunately, when the light comes from exactly the same direction as the lens, so when the flash is on top of the camera, it creates probably the least interesting kind of light. It becomes much more interesting with light if you can have the light coming from the side or even from behind. Now, understand the next problem that you've got is you don't have triggers which will allow you to create an off-camera flash. So the other way round this is to bounce the light. And this is where you can also get really quite creative, VG. You've got the brain for it, you've got the mind for it, you've got the creativity for it. I think it's just a case of getting in there and playing with it, coming in with a sort of slightly engineer's head. And some of you out there, I know some of you who watch this actually do veer more onto the kind of engineering kind of side of mind. So it's a place to start having fun, to start thinking about. If you had the flash only either the one that's already existing on your camera or one that you've bought, but you can only trigger it from the camera, how could you get the light to come from different angles? And one of the things you can do, because you can swivel the top of this flash, you can bounce the light. Now, if you turn it just partially, there will still be some overspill. But you can block that. You can block the overspill with just a piece of card stuck on the side with a bit of tack onto the side of the flash. So I should have had one of these earlier. So let's just show you. So we've got a flash here. It's then sitting on top of your camera. We can point it in the direction we want, turn it to the side, that way, even turn it backwards to bounce light off something else. Now the fact that you can bounce it gives you option. Now if you consider, for example, then, let's say this is where I've got, if you were the object and I'm pointing this at you, wherever you can see a bit of white here, that's where light's going to go. Now, if I turn it this way, I might be able to bounce the light off that way, but still some of it is going to end up coming towards the thing. So at that point, all I really need is literally a piece of card or a piece of paper, which I stick to the side of it. And then that stops any overspill going off in the direction I don't want it. I'll stick it there. So you get that idea. So you can, a little bit of card stuck on the side, you can create cones, you can create... Now the other thing to then do is what you do is you place either a reflector or a mirror off to one side. So if you had a mirror to the... So if we flip back to here, if say you had a mirror over on to the right, just outside of the edge of that photo, and you turned the top of the flash so it pointed towards the mirror, and then you put a little bit of card on the side of the flash so that it didn't spill back over onto your scene. Then when you went click, the light would bounce into the mirror and then come back onto the scene, and it would be lit from a different angle. Now, for all the fact that I'm saying this out loud, I thought this was all theoretical. I thought I've not actually tried doing this myself. So just this afternoon, and this is very basic, I just wanted to see whether that would work. And I got the little mannequin that's sitting over myself, and I put the camera on the ground, put the flash on top of the camera, and took a shot against a couple of cardboard boxes. So there we have, and that's a forward light. So I thought, well, what happens then if I stick a mirror and do exactly what I've just told you? I have a mirror to the right, I point the flash towards the mirror, and then put up a little bit of card to stop the overspill. And I ended up with that. So the flash is still on top of the camera, but I've got it pointing off, and I've managed to create a side light. Now, I will just say I had to increase the power because reflected light isn't as strong as original light. So on my original settings, I had the camera set at something like, the flash set at something like 1/8 power. When I turned it, I put it up to 1/4 power, or it might have even been half power. in order to get more light to bounce and come back. But you can see there's a considerable difference between being lit from the front and lit from the side. And it's much, much more atmospheric. And just to show you, this is an appalling photo, but it does give you a sense. This is, I took this with my phone just to show you that I'm not making all this up. So I've got my camera. You can actually see the figure, that photo that I just showed you, being lit from the side. It's got it pointing, sitting on the floor, pointing at the mannequin. And here we've got the mirror. And the light is going into the mirror. Now, if you can see the object in the mirror from the line of the flash will be hitting the mirror and lining it up. So you have to move the mirror about backwards and forwards a bit to make sure that you can see the object you want lit. But you get the principle. It's not actually that complicated. It's a lot of messing about, but the principle of it isn't that complicated. If you know about the fact that light bounces off mirrors, then it's as straightforward as that. And because I didn't want to get the overspill, I've just got a piece of doubled over paper or thick paper stuck to the side of the flash with a little bit of tack. And that then has allowed me to photograph this and create that instead of that. So I hope that gives you some ideas, VG. I think making the models is a brilliant thing to do, fantastic idea. I think your next thing to have fun with is how to light them. And you can have so much fun with the lighting, trying to get light bouncing about. So you can have it bouncing off mirrors. Could you do other things? Could you have a mirror there, another mirror over there? Could you angle bits of, before now I have even had bits of tin foil, aluminium foil or baking part, not baking, but you know what I mean, the tin foil anyway, to acting like a mirror to sort of create little bits of, so could you create multiple light scenes off the one flash? It's a kind of intriguing possibility. Play, really play. If you've got the model, start now thinking how you can adjust it to. Now, the problem you might have is if you are looking in the back of the camera because you've got it on live view. If you reduce your ISO setting to 100 and all the rest of it, so it's just being lit by the flash, you suddenly find you can't see in the back. So it might be a case of just adjust your ISO to auto while you're doing the setup so you can see where everything goes. And then before you go click, put your ISO back to 100 and then go click. And then that way you will have the controlled light that you want rather than it being lit from above. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, ask me again, and we can talk about it more in depth. But I hope that helps. So a lot of fun there. Thank you very much for sending in those images. Thank you for sending the behind-the-scene images as well, because that's really what sort of started triggering me with the idea of bouncing the flash. Stacey says she did it once, putting tin foil on cardboard. And Jackie says I've used homemade reflectors with tin foil as well. So yeah, that's good. Okay, so what else have we got? There's quite a few comments here. Jackie said she's also heard about India down in South Africa. Stacey likes the way your mind went into creative mode. Nuria says my little one does this with her Lego. Lego's another one. If or some of the kids' toys. If you've got little action figures and things like that as well. In fact, there's a whole sort of subgenre of still life though, where people do incredible setups with Lego and create these dramatic scenes, get very, very cinematic with. In fact, I saw one recently. A couple of little Star Wars Lego figures sitting inside a metal grater, like a carrot grater, cheese grater, square one. And it was sitting inside, but red lights had been put in, and it was reflecting on the inside. It was really incredibly creative. So you can create little scenes, and I think, as well as being creative and a bit of fun and passing the time and taking your head away from whatever else happens to be bothering you, I think it's a really, really good way of practicing composition, lighting, and narrative and story. What story are you trying to tell? How can we create it? And it doesn't matter if it's very obvious little handmade models. All the rules apply. The composition is still going to apply. The lighting is still going to apply. So the more you can practice on these things, the better. You'll end up with some interesting, fun little photos anyway. But then the amount of knowledge you gain from it means that when you are able to then leave the house, when you are then able to sort of start creating scenes, whether it's narrative scenes like I do, or you're doing portraits, you then have a much better understanding of lighting and how to manipulate the light. What else have we got? Yeah, Jackie loves the fact that we can see the behind the scenes. Sandra says, fantastic homemade set, VG. Take care until the situation with the pandemic improves. Jackie says, keep busy. It's healthy to keep busy during lockdown. Maggie says she loves your creativity. VG says, thanks, Kim. Yes, I forgot to bounce a light. Just realised I turned the flash facing the roof. Yes, you can do that. You can point it up and bounce it. And that gives you a soft all-round light, but you then don't get the sort of dramatic shadows, which are always more interesting if you bounce it off other surfaces. VG says, loves the side lighting, and we'll try again this weekend. Stacey says, what is the mirror size and does it matter? Not really. Play. I mean, again, you know, the bigger the mirror, the more reflection options you maybe have, but sometimes you might want to narrow the mirror to just create a streak of light, in which case you might have a larger mirror and then put bits of black paper or bits of paper or something over the set and create just a restricted area. So yeah, homemade reflectors with tinfoil, mirrors, even a strong piece of white card can act as a reflector. The more mirror-like the surface, the more light is going to come across. If you've got something just like a piece of white card, it won't reflect the light as much, so you would have to up the power of the flash. But again, you just keep playing and experimenting. So I hope that helps. Thanks very much for sending those in, VG. I love the creativity.